I was kind of like in a toss up on like if I should make this two different videos or if I should just, make it one video. I decided that I'm probably just going to do one video on this because I figure I'll be going back and forth as I make my points between both topics. So there's really no sense in like splitting the videos up because it would feel like redundant because, I'd be making a lot of the same points in both videos just with like a minor focus on one point or the other. So I'm just going to combine this as one video. So we just saw Jimmy Butler as the 8th seed with, I believe, 4 undrafted players on the roster and 2 undrafted starters go for 38 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists on 69% true shooting against probably one of the best defensive teams in recent memory. I think this Bucks team is probably one of the best defensive teams in the past, I don't know, decade and a half. I think we can argue that. What we just saw Jimmy Butler do was like Brady-esque. Now, obviously, he hasn't won a championship with this roster, and that's why I said Brady-esque, not, Brady-like or whatever, because we've seen Brady win playoff games, win AFC championship games, win Super Bowls with Edelmans and Chris Hogan's and whoever's, what we just saw from Jimmy Butler was incredible. But I think that, and I don't want to take anything away from Jimmy, obviously, because that, give Jimmy all the flowers you can and then some, because he deserves every single petal. But I think what I wanted to kind of like talk about too and like include in this discussion is like the Bucks failings and like how did this happen, and also where do the Bucks go from here? Because if you're a Bucks fan and you're coming away, you've got the draft tonight, you've got the NFL draft tonight, so I guess Budenholzer is gonna get a little bit of a break. Like, if there was nothing going on in Milwaukee right now, I'm like 99.9% sure that every single radio station in that state would be calling for Mike Budenholzer's job. And I don't know that isn't already happening either. That may already be happening. But I think if you're a Bucks fan and you're watching and you've just finished watching that series, the one thing on your mind has to be like, how did that happen? Like we all know that Giannis hurt himself and he wasn't available for essentially 2 games because he only played 6 or 7 minutes of the game where he injured himself. So essentially he hasn't been available for 2 games. He wasn't available for 2 games in the series. So he missed some time. But the Bucks had experience playing without Giannis. They had they had more than 20 games, I believe, if I remember correctly. They had more than 20 games where they didn't play with Giannis. If I remember correctly, they won 13 or 14 games in that span. So they had like an idea of like, okay, when we don't have Giannis, like how are we gonna run sets? What are we gonna do for these, for this situation, for that situation? So I think that for me, the place to start, again, if you're a Bucks fan, the place to start is with Mike Budenholzer. I think that, people look at the roster. I've seen people, posting the roster and posting the Bucks assets and asking questions like, oh, like, the Bucks really don't have a lot to rebuild with. Like, they've got some free agents. Like, what do you think they should? I think the roster is fine. I think the Bucks roster is perfect. Not perfect, but I think it's a roster capable of winning a championship like it literally did 2 years ago, so I think that the roster is fine. They just have to re-sign guys. I guess you could sign and trade Chris Middleton if you really wanted to, but I really don't think that's necessary. I think Chris Middleton's fine. He works in what Milwaukee wants to do, especially defensively. Like, he's not the greatest on-ball defender, but he is long and he's a decently smart defender. He's not, a disaster on the defensive side of the ball. You take that and then his length, and Chris Middleton is a pretty solid guy. He's a solid player. I don't think you need to change the roster in any capacity. I think the biggest thing that you have to look at is like the coach. I think that meltdown was 100% on the coaching. I think that the players essentially did everything in their power. I mean, Drew Holiday is a great defender, and I think that he's gotten a lot of unfair criticism for this series because, Jimmy Butler just went postal. Like, he had arguably one of the greatest playoff series ever, definitely in recent memory. So I think that all things considered, like roster, the injury to Tyler Hero, like I don't think I have to justify that statement too much, but I think that if you're a Bucks fan, you have to look at Mike Budenholzer and be like, well, like, why were you never trying to trap Jimmy Butler? Why were you never trying to double Jimmy Butler? Like at some point, in game 4, when Jimmy Butler has like 24 points in the first half, like, you just have to come out in the second half and just tell him, like, you can't have the ball. Somebody else do it, but not you. Like, you already have 24 points in the first half. Like, absolutely not. Somebody else do it. Caleb Martin can do it. Let's see if Bam can do it. Let's see if fucking Gabe Vincent can do it. You have to get the ball out of Jimmy Butler's hand, and that's an adjustment that has to be made by the coaches. Like, I mean, I'm not saying the players, can't make that adjustment, but like that's an adjustment that has to be made by the coach, during a timeout, or again in halftime. Like, you have to realize what's happening on the floor, and like that bugged me out. Like, I don't know about, obviously I'm not Mike Budenholzer, like I don't know what's going on in that dude's head, but like if I seen, like, I'm already down at that point 2-1 and Jimmy Butler's got 24 in the first half, like, that's bugging me out. Like, I'm kind of looking at that and I'm like, okay, like, what's about to happen? Like, and again, we come out in the second half and he just can't have the ball. We're gonna trap him at half court. We're gonna deny him the ball. We're gonna double team him every time he touches the ball. There's just no reason why Jimmy Butler should have had 56 points in that game. You're the 1 seed. You're the best defense in the NBA, or one of the best defenses in the NBA. On paper, you look like probably the best defense in the NBA, barring the Celtics. I just think that Mike Budenholzer's failure to make adjustments, and in the video I made even before this one, when Jimmy did drop his 56, I said that Mike Budenholzer, one of the main critiques of him is he does not make adjustments. He does not like to make meaningful adjustments, if he makes any, for whatever reason. And I think that it's important to place, blame where, I mean, you can blame Giannis for like that terrible performance at the free throw line. You can blame him for the final possession of the game. Like, I don't even know what he was doing. He just kind of, Gabe Vincent misses. Giannis grabs the rebound. He starts going up court. Okay. And then he crashes. He puts his head down, crashes into Jimmy Butler, trips over himself, I think, throws the ball to Chris Middleton, And like, I just feel like I feel like we live in the one timeline where that possession didn't end with just like a Giannis and one dunk or something, like that possession was just baffling to watch. Chris Middleton picks up his dribble and then he gives it to Grayson Allen. And in fairness, when I originally saw it, I was like, why did Chris Middleton like pick his dribble up? Like, why would he do that? In fairness, he wanted it back though from Grayson Allen. I seen that he wanted it back, but Grayson Allen just kind of like took off. And when he baited, I think it was Gabe Vincent on when he faked it to Drew Holiday. When he baited Gabe Vincent, you got to take one dribble and then pull up. It's a 2-point because it's a 2-point game. If I'm remembering correctly, it's a 2-point game. So yeah, I don't know why he was trying to like go to the basket like he was like James Harden, like he's trying to euro to the basket like he's James Harden. Like, you made the defender miss. You fake the pass, you take one dribble and pull up. And I mean, Grayson Allen, he's a shooter. Like that's who Grayson Allen is. That's his namesake in the NBA. That's why he's on a roster, is to knock down jump shots. So I don't understand why, like, the Bucks didn't even end up getting a shot off. That last possession, and I think that last possession was kind of before everybody wants to blame Giannis, I think that last possession was definitely more Mike Budenholzer. I think Budenholzer should have. I mean, this is why you have timeouts. You go over different scenarios. Like, okay, if A happens, then do this. If B happens, then do this. If C happens, then do this. Like, there should have been a plan. There was clearly no plan. Like, there was just Mike Budenholzer. I don't even know why. Like, what was said in the timeout. I don't know what they were trying to do, but there was no plan, or there was a really, really bad plan A, and then there was just no plan B or C or whatever. Like, if you're Budenholzer, you have to go down the list, of just possible. Anything can happen. It's the NBA. Anything can happen. You have to account for, okay, like, this is the play we want. We want Giannis to take the ball off the missed shot, and we want him to go down, attack the basket, see if he can get an and one. Worst case scenario, he ties the game. If Giannis loses the ball and it ends up in Middleton's hands, then do this. If it ends up in your hands, then do this. Like there has to be some type of like contingent, like there has to be a plan and then contingency plans. And like Budenholzer just doesn't. Like, I don't even know what he be doing in the timeouts. Like what is he telling his team? I seriously wonder, like, what was the discussion before that, before the last Bucks possession? Like, what were they even talking about? I would say, and like, again, you have to put blame where blame is due. So, I mean, it's not all Budenholzer. There's easily blame to go on Giannis. His performance at the free throw line. Drew Holiday earlier in the series was struggling. Chris Middleton, his defense was inconsistent. I mean, the Bucks shooters weren't really on, except for, game 2, I think. That was really the only game that, the other guys were really like lighting it up. Other than that, it was. And I look at what Giannis did when he did play in this series. I think it's 26, 11, and 5 on 51% true shooting, or 52%, something like that. And I mean, it's not perfect. Like, it's not that's not stat line for anybody who like really watches basketball, like watches the game, knows that like 51% true shooting for Giannis like isn't really great. He's usually better than that. But I think that's enough, from your star player who's also like dealing with, a banged up tailbone. Like, I think that's more than enough. And a triple double from Giannis in the elimination game, I think that's enough. Like, did he struggle at the free throw line? Of course he did. But you're still only down 2 points. Any other factor that, was adjusted could have gone, could have made up that 2 points. I feel like, at least, like, Um, I think Budenholzer has to go. That's my main takeaway from this. I mean, even before the Bucks went on that championship run, I was saying that I didn't really like Budenholzer. Even after they won the title, I wasn't kind of sold on like, oh, that's a lock. Budenholzer's job is locked forever. Like, he got a title, his job's locked. Like, I really have never just been like a big fan of this dude, how he coaches the game. And like I said, his unwillingness to like make adjustments and like make changes. Whereas like Eric Spoelstra was just kind of like, he was just a wizard. He was like, he seemed to figure it out probably by the middle of game 3. He was like, oh, we got the Bucks. We like we know them. We got them. We know what the Bucks like to do. We know what we're gonna do to beat them, even with our limited, even with the limited resources that they had. You have Jimmy Bam, and then it's Jimmy Bam, Kyle Lowry, and a bunch of dudes. Like, Budenholzer just has to go. If I'm a Bucks fan, I definitely want Budenholzer out. I think the roster's fine. I don't think they, like I said, you could probably sign and trade Chris Middleton if you see something better out there. Like, but I mean, I don't think that the roster needs to be changed. I think it's Budenholzer. I think you gotta, it's 2023. You can't be so unwilling to make adjustments, especially on the fly, especially in the playoffs. You can't just keep throwing Drew Holiday at Jimmy and hope that eventually he misses shots, that he'll just start missing shots. Like, that's not, Jimmy Butler's not just like another dude in the league, and like, I don't know. I think Budenholzer has to go personally. I'm interested to hear what Bucks fans have to say about this though. Like, what do Bucks fans think about this? Do y'all want Budenholzer to go? Do y'all want Chris Middleton to go? Do y'all want Giannis to go? Like, I know that's extremely taboo, but I mean, just put your thoughts down in the comments. If you like what you hear, please drop a like and subscribe. It would, it really helps with the algorithm and stuff. And I'm hoping to hit 50 subscribers by the end of the year. I think that would be pretty cool. I think that's realistic. I don't think that's asking too much. So yeah, like I said, if you like what you hear, even if you don't like what you hear, comment. Like, I really want to, talk with you guys. This is like one of my favorite parts of like basketball, is like speculating about the future and, like talking about like potential roster changes, coaching changes, front office changes, stuff like that. Like, this is one of my favorite parts of the year, is like, oh man, that team got knocked out of playoffs. Like, what do they do now? What do they need to improve? Like, who do they get rid of? Who should they try to go get? Like, so this is, like I said, one of my favorite parts of talking about basketball. So I'm really interested to hear, what anybody really, but especially what Bucks fans have to say about this, the collapse as a whole, and, where do you want the Bucks to go moving forward? What do you want the Bucks to do? Like I said, drop a like, subscribe, drop a comment. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to me very much. And I hope you have a nice day.